So if Mississippi wore a New Jersey, what did Delaware? Hey, shh. Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we watch movies and propose unnecessary prequels, sequels, reboots, and remakes. My name is Kane. With me, as always, is my co-host, my wife, and the one that makes me feel like I'm home, Kelsey.
That's life.
Is that a line from the movie?
Yeah.
Feels...
There's like a long quote, but I wasn't gonna go into that because it's a little deep, and I felt like this movie was a little deep, so that's life.
Okay.
If nothing else, that's life. Sorry, everyone, for the grumbles in the back. It's Cosmo the podcast dog making his grumbly debut.
This week we had feelings with 2004's Garden State. So what do you think the story was?
This was like a artsy movie about a young man's journey. He's back home after almost 10 years for the first time ever after his mom passes away.
So it's Zach Braff's directing debut, and he wrote the film and everything. He plays Andrew Largeman, and it starts off with him receiving a phone call that his mother has died. Technically, it starts off with a plane crash, which, since I watched this movie for the first time for this podcast, I've now watched it 3 times. And I didn't really think about it when I was watching it for the first time, but the plane crash seems to be showing his numbness to any emotion. Because as the plane in his dream is crashing, he's adjusting the fan and not reacting at all.
That's how you were when our plane was crashing, basically.
Our plane wasn't crashing.
We had such a horrible flight, and he was just like, well, if we're dying, we're dying.
It's no need to overreact.
Yeah, he was so upset. And I'm telling you, when this plane landed, people were screaming, crying.
People were praying.
Kissing the ground, praying. And this was like, what, a 3-hour flight?
Yes.
And the whole thing, I think about 2 hours of it was questionable what was going on.
Well, yeah.
And he had no reaction. I think the best part is we were sitting at the back of the plane, and there was a single row behind us, and we had a screaming children. And rightfully so. They had every right to be scared because you didn't see one flight attendant stand up. They're all strapped in. Not one word from the pilot. And he is Zach Braff. If you watch this movie, he is Zach Braff.
I'm not sure I want to compare myself to this character as we get into it, but yes, so...
In that particular moment, that was you.
So it's showcasing what is the theme of the movie is that he's very numb to any feeling, and that continues as he wakes up and receives this phone call, and you see his bedroom is completely white. Now, there's also... You learn a lot just from that scene of his bedroom. One, he has, barely any furniture. He has, a bed. You can see his, phone is, on the ground. He's
That's how I wake up every morning.
It's different. He's poor because he's a struggling actor, trying to make it. But also, again, his room is completely white. His sheets are completely white. His shirt is white. His bathroom's completely white. He's just, again, devoid of any feeling or personality or emotion. And you even see when he opens up his cabinet in the bathroom, it is just wall to wall with different kinds of pills.
I didn't see the whole thing a second time. And I do think that you notice little nuances to the movie that you didn't notice the first time because this movie's so, I don't know, it's artsy, so it's detailed in a way. Subtly detailed, though. But the opening the cabinet to the pills, for me, I think set the tone for the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a bunch of antidepressants in there, and he heads to work for apparently one last time before he heads out. And the reason I just wanted to bring up the work thing is because this depiction of him working in a Vietnamese restaurant is from Zach Braff's own experience. He worked as a waiter in a French Vietnamese restaurant when he auditioned for the leading part in the series Scrubs.
Is that a medical show, or...?
Everybody knows the series
Here's
Scrubs.
Our story about a show we made.
About a bunch of doctor nurses.
Docs and nurses.
Okay.
Here's some stories.
So he goes back home to New Jersey to see his mom be buried, deal with that. And at the burial, he reconnects with apparently some old friends. Mark and Dave, they are grave diggers there. And this movie, while it is super deep, I think it's so funny because the way that they do a lot of the joke, it's like that deadpan humor, or it's just people will say things that's just real quick, nobody reacts. Like when he meets up with Mark and Dave at the funeral, they're talking about going to a party, and the way they just casually are like, yeah, we'll probably just go over there after we bury your mom. And he's like, okay. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. But again, he's not reacting to anything, which I think is also a more deep part of the movie. So he hangs out with these old friends, and they're having a little party, and there's just like a shit ton of drugs at this party.
Cocaine, ecstasy. He does turn down the cocaine.
Yes,
Takes the ecstasy.
but you can even, again, I mean, it's a constant thing. I'm just going to keep saying it. At the party, he's taking these drugs, and he's not feeling the same things that everyone else is feeling. He's not reacting like everyone else. He's just sitting on the couch the whole time as everyone's kind of getting around.
Yeah. I think I think the entire party scene, and it kind of, that party scene does a good job because it kind of the camera moves with him, and it shows you the party through his eyes of him just watching these people be insane and crazy. And I think, I don't know, I thought that was really like cool.
Yeah, I think it's another thing that you kind of see as an adult is, him going back home and seeing some of the people that you've grown up with, like, haven't changed at all, or, are having their own problems very unique from yours. But when he gets to, New Jersey, he meets with his father, which you find out later that he has not been home in a long time. He mentions to his father that he's been having headaches. He says it's like a little lightning storm in his brain. This is actually due to him getting off his medication just cold turkey.
Yeah, his dad schedules him an appointment with a neurologist, and when he goes to the neurologist's office, he finds all this out, but this is where you meet Sam.
Yes.
His, like, new friend / love interest of the movie.
Yeah. So Sam's played by Natalie Portman, and she, this movie is one of the movies that's credited with that kind of character type that Sam is. She's very bubbly and weird, and, she's just a really different energy in his life than he's been used to.
Yeah.
You meet her as Andrew is being humped by a dog, and she's just laughing at him, and then she suggests that he kicks the dog in the balls. She also is a liar, which they make comments about throughout the movie. Eventually it seems like maybe she's not lying to him, but she is at this neurologist's office for something as well, and she initially lies saying that she's there to pick somebody up, but as they come to call Andrew in for his appointment, they tell her, we'll be right with you, Sam. So his doctor's office visit, it's fucking hilarious that he's looking at the wall and it's just filled with this doctor's degrees and rewards and just all kinds of stuff, to the point that he looks up at the ceiling and there's an extra degree pinned to the ceiling because there was no more space.
I thought that was a really funny, if Zach Braff wrote the whole script and wrote that art into it, I thought that was hilarious.
I think so.
I think this is the point of the movie that you kind of learn why he's on all these medications. The neurologist is talking to him about all of these meds, and that's where you find out that he actually he didn't bring the medications with him, and so he hadn't taken them in multiple days. And a lot of psychiatric medications, you can't just quit cold turkey. You'll have really bad side effects and bad things can happen. So he kind of tells him about that. And then he's like, why are you taking all these? And he goes, I don't know. My dad just put me on them when I was really young. So you find out that not only did his dad put him on all these medications, you don't know why he did it. And you can tell that he possibly has some kind of significant issue, but the reason he is the way he is because of the medication. So I think it sets the tone again for the rest of the movie, because you're going to see him become a different person.
Yeah, and I believe he mentions that he's been on it since he was 9 years old, and that's got to be insane to be on these medications that are making you feel emotionless and numb from that young of an age. I feel like you would have a really hard time knowing who you are. Yeah. So,
and I think you kind of see that in this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of this movie, is that he is not on medication. And so you can kind of see as the movie progresses how he's changing. So he, after leaving that appointment, he talks with the character Sam again, and they ends up giving her a ride, which, during that ride, he mentions he wants to go to another friend of his house, but he doesn't want to be there for long, so he wants to bring her because it's a good excuse to leave. I thought that scene was funny just because he tells her, like, hey, just tug on your ear when you're ready to leave. And the only scene we get from that visit is the guy is shooting a bow and arrow straight up into the sky, and they're dodging the arrow, and immediately
It's
she
also on
looks
fire,
over.
I think.
Yes, a flaming arrow, but immediately she looks over and tugs her ear. So anyway, Andrew meets Sam's family, and her house is kind of, it matches like her energy. Like they have hamster tunnels all around the house. She has an adopted brother. Her mom is immediately telling her she has to bury one of the hamsters, unfortunately, because she forgot to take a wheel out. It got stuck and passed. And she seems very nervous by this, and she keeps saying, like, oh my God, you're so freaked out. You can just leave. It's okay. And he eventually kind of draws a line and is like, hey, you don't have to do that. Like, it's okay. So you
Yeah.
can see she's got some of her own stuff going on as well.
I think whenever they go outside to bury the hamster,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty funny because they have an entire pet cemetery in their backyard.
Yeah, well, she mentions, we're not bad pet owners. We've just had so many pets. The tombstones in that pet cemetery were actually made by the cast and crew, and they feature their own pets' deceased names. I know, it's a little sad, but cute.
I think this scene is powerful, though, because it's when he tells her that he's here because his mom died.
Yes, and he's, again, so nonchalant about it. She cries when he tells her that, and he's like, well, why are you crying? And she's like, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then, as they go on to bury her hamster, she's very sad about it. And he's like, do you want me to say something? And he kind of makes a joke. And she's like, that's not funny. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, again, his emotions are just fucked.
Yeah.
So, Andrew and Sam kind of become friends after this. And they're hanging out a lot. They end up hanging out with Andrew's friends, the gravediggers, Mark and Dave, at Dave's... Or not Dave. They have a third friend. What's the third friend's name? Is it Jesse? Is that the one? I don't know.
Kenny? No, Kenny's the cop.
I'll just call him the third rich friend. They have a third friend who got rich apparently selling Velcro or something. It doesn't matter. He has a mansion. They're hanging out there. And this is where Andrew reveals a big part of his life is what happened exactly that got him on medication and also sent away, and why he's not been home since apparently he was a child.
He left. He got sent to a boarding school when he was 16, and he hasn't been home since.
So he got into an argument with his mother, or he was upset with her, and he shoved her, and she fell because they had a dishwasher that had a faulty latch, and the dishwasher was open, and this caused her to be paralyzed from the neck down, which also leads to part of how she died. They mentioned she drowned in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of see where maybe there's some thought of, is this his fault in the first place, her death? But also you see that through his life, he's probably dealt with, is it my fault that my mom was paralyzed? And because of his supposed anger in that moment, that's why he was put on the medication. Then they felt that he should be in this other environment. And
he never he hadn't spoken a word to his dad in 10 years.
Yeah.
He just went to boarding school, graduated alone, and moved to California.
Yeah, it's a super sad story. And
yeah,
it's, again, just a big part of his character. So he's still, supposed to be leaving soon, and his friend Mark mentions that he has a going away present for him, but they have to track it down.
That's what I was gonna say about this. That was supposed to be my opening line. It was, now, come on, we gotta see a man about a nitrous tank.
Oh, okay.
But I think mine was a little better.
Oh, yes, because, I don't know about that. Mark and them go through this whole day of basically trading items.
I do think, we can talk about it when we get there. Anyway, trading items.
They're trading items to ultimately end up at this guy's house that lives in the quarry. And this guy's studying the quarry.
Listen, house is a strong word. He lives in a boat.
Okay, but I love that guy. He
I
seems
do too.
So, like,
they
at
paid him
peace
to come
with
out
life.
there to guard it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, that guy seems happy. I think it's a really, like, important character for them to meet. And they see that, he has this kind of strange life, but he's, again, just happy. He has a family and everything. They end up getting this piece of jewelry from him because he also deals in antique jewelry. It's another way he makes his living. And what had happened is Mark, his friend, as a gravedigger, steals jewelry off of people's bodies, which is fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that that's a little messed up. I do think it's a little weird maybe to be buried with your jewelry, but that's not really for him to decide. He stole Andrew's mom's jewelry when she was buried, and he ends up working to get this necklace back that he traded away to give to Andrew. And it was his mom's favorite necklace.
And he has a story about it, and actually, that's when he sheds his first tear.
Yes, telling the story about the necklace makes him shed his first tear. It's a big moment because, again, he hasn't felt any emotions.
I
Now,
do want to say that also at the Infinite Abyss when they leave and it's raining, and he goes and stands up on top of something and then
crane,
just has a giant yell.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a healing scene for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having even that kind of emotion is something he has not felt. And so, yeah, he gets up on this crane and screams, and then Mark and Sam get up there with him. During that scene, actually, Natalie Portman was the only member of the cast that wore a safety harness on the crane because they thought that because of her size, she might slip and fall. So everyone else was just up there free, but...
That's crazy. She was very small.
I know. So Sam and Andrew, their relationship progresses. They spend the night together, and, I word it like that specifically because Zach Braff chose not to include, like, a full love scene between him and her because he felt that it would take the audience out of the movie too much, and he wanted it to be implied and sweet rather than visual, which there's, been a big argument these last few years of are sex scenes ever necessary in movies and TV. I think depending on the story it is. I think this one did it super well. Like, I do think it was better not to see, like, a full-blown sex scene. Like,
Yeah.
I think, again, it would
I
that's
agree.
for more of a steamy movie. This is
Not.
it's not like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like these are two people. Like, this doesn't feel like it was meant to be a rom-com or, a movie that comes out around Valentine's Day or anything like that.
I don't think so either because after this, he gets out of bed and he actually goes and talks to his dad and lays down the law. Like, his mom's injury wasn't his fault. It was a faulty latch. That doesn't make him a bad person, and he's not going to take medicine anymore. And I think that is the beginning of him healing his relationship with his father.
Yeah, and he mentions during that scene, again, I've felt so numb my whole life.
And I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
He goes to leave to go back to LA.
Yeah, and Sam doesn't want him to leave. She's crying, and I honestly thought he was just going to leave, and I thought it was kind of a depressing ending.
I thought he was going to leave, too.
Those scenes, though, in the airport, she does return, or he does return. He's like, I'm not going. I want to be with you. I don't want to spend another minute without you. I'm tired of waiting for this thing in my life. I just want to live my life. Mm-hmm. And... he says, like, what are we going to do now? And that's kind of where the movie ends. But those final scenes they were shot in Terminal 4 at JFK International Airport in New York City. And production was unable to close the area for filming. So it was still just a working terminal, meaning all the people walking by were just real travelers trying to get by.
It was such a low-budget film, too, because it was his first film. He wasn't super, super famous yet.
Yeah, no, he
had only done the first season of Scrubs. I believe this movie was between the first and the second season of Scrubs, filmed over that summer.
Well, so the movie, it does have a decent budget, but that was because somebody specifically financed it. If you remember in the beginning of the movie when he's at the restaurant, he comes out and that guy is like, what the hell, dude? Were you on break? That guy's actually the guy that financed the movie. But, still, it wasn't like some of the budgets you see these days. I didn't get to say it earlier, so before I talk about the rating, I wanted to say my favorite line of the whole movie is when him and Mark and Sam are looking for his necklace, and they arrive at that guy's trailer. There's a joke earlier about how Mark collects these trading cards called Desert Storm trading cards, and so they get there and they're standing there in the rain, and Mark's like, "This is it," and Andrew goes, "So knock and barter for more desert trading cards." Or Desert Storm
trading cards.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're there for. So something I wanted to start doing when I talk about the rating is give kind of the budget and box office for it. So the budget for this movie was $2.5 million.
Okay.
It made $26.8 million domestically and $9 million in other territories, so a total of $35.8 million.
That's pretty good, because I don't think it was like a big release. Wasn't it a Sundance movie or something?
Well... I mean, yes, but then they do the Sundance and then it'll get released in theaters. Yeah, I mean, to us, budgets are always going to sounds like you did great, but a lot of times studios want unbelievable money back. Regardless, this movie maybe wasn't as well received in theaters. It was all right, but it got a huge cult following as the years have gone on. Mm-hmm. I rated it a 5 out of 5. I thought, like, it was such a good movie for something that people around that age might be going through. And Zach Braff mentioned, how when he wrote it, he was feeling the loneliest he had ever felt. And I think, it doesn't seem like some kind of vanity project for him. It seems like some real issues that maybe people don't necessarily talk about, or something that you wouldn't see in a movie.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and I just think it's because I didn't watch, like, I think watching it as an adult, it was the right move, but I also think because it's been 20 years, certain things didn't age well.
Yes.
And that's not their fault, but that's literally the reason I gave it a
Yeah,
4.5 out of 5. Well, I just want to make sure it worked.
Okay, I'm leaving it in.
All right.
So, we have a true or false for things about Zach Braff, since this movie was sort of pulled inspiration from his life.
Okay.
Both of Zach Braff's parents are psychologists.
No, just his mom is.
Correct. His dad's a trial attorney.
I thought his dad was a teacher. I had no idea.
Zach Braff has directed several music videos.
Yes, Mariah Carey's most notably. Or no, he was a PA on hers. But yes, he has directed music videos.
He has, including Laszlo Bane's Superman, which is the theme song for Scrubs.
Oh, that's right.
You think I can use that? That's right.
Yeah. That's right. How's that?
I'm leaving it.
All right.
Zach Braff was originally cast as the lead in the show Ted Lasso.
No, there's no way.
You're right. He was not. He did, however, direct the Emmy-nominated episode Biscuits.
He did. That's the second episode ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zach Braff appears in the video game Kingdom Hearts 2.
You're trying to trick me. Chicken Little.
He is Chicken Little.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys, I'm not actually getting all of these right. I listened to like half of I was caught up at one point to the Scrubs Rewatch Show podcast, in which they've talked about a lot of these things.
How about this last one? Zach Braff owns a chain of fast food restaurants.
I don't think it's a chain. I think it's just an isolated restaurant.
You're right. He owns a Mermaid Oyster Bar in New York City.
Ah, nice.
My God. You got it all right.
But I learned all of that on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's a Scrubs Rewatch Show.
After you for your sequel.
After you. Also, I got it wrong. I thought his dad was a teacher.
I mean, yeah, but I didn't ask that. I just asked.
I know, but I was just saying.
Are they both psychologists?
And I was thinking Mariah Carey, but Mariah Carey Chart Toppers, he was a PA, and that's how he started as a PA in New York before he moved to LA.
Should we just do a Zach Braff podcast?
I guess so. I know all of these things. Okay, my sequel is called Golden State.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. California?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Direct sequel to the first
is that
one.
what that state's called?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Okay.
For some reason, I wanted to say the Sunshine State, but that's Florida.
Somewhere shittier, huh?
Yeah, that's Florida. So anyways, Golden State. It's a direct sequel,
okay.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Andrew is back in... Wait, I had a question before I tell you this.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Do you think that he stayed in New Jersey forever, or do you think Sam went to LA with him?
That's hard, because if I... Honestly, I would say the two of them didn't end up together because neither one wanted to be where the other was. I don't think he wants to move back to New Jersey, because even though he's kind of made up with his dad, they didn't make up in the way that's like, let's have a full-blown relationship. Yeah. It's like, let's do the best we can. And, he had a good time with his friends, but also, again, I think there's a theme through the movie that's like, oh, nothing ever changes around here. Like, yeah. But her, on the other hand, I can't imagine her wanting to leave her family. She seemed to be very close with her brother and mother.
That was my thing, too. I do feel like her mom would follow her, though. And her brother would, too.
Maybe so. I mean, that's not the way I wrote my sequel, but I think in real life, if I knew these people, I'd be like, they're not going to last.
I actually agree with that statement, and I didn't write my sequel like that either, but we'll get to that. Okay. Anyways, Golden State. Andrew's back in California after Sam and him decided to be together. He's still pursuing a career in acting, and eventually Sam quits her job to move with him. Things are going great as Sam finds a job, and Andrew is much better in auditions than previously because he has a personality without all of the medications he was taking. About a year after moving and having some success, Sam has a large epileptic seizure that has caused her to be put into a medically induced coma. This causes Andrew to start to mentally spiral because he has flashbacks to his childhood and his mother. And we see her watching this happen while she's in a coma. So I think throughout the rest of this movie, there'll be points where you see things through her perspective. Even though obviously she's in a coma, she can still hear things. And you also see her have visions of both her past, present, and questionable future. That's important. Mm-hmm. Andrew, out of desperation, contacts his father, and his father immediately comes to California to support his son and also try to help. As his father comes and Sam's mother is present, things become more somber as well as tense, because Andrew has never really continued his relationship with his father, and Sam's condition causes old issues to be brought up regarding Andrew's mother, that him and his father never really worked out, and so you'll see their relationship kind of evolve and then actually get over things.
Yeah.
Sam's finally medically stable and they're going to try and reverse her coma, but something goes wrong and she is unable to come out of her coma. More tests indicate she may never become fully conscious again. During this time, Andrew and Sam's mother decide they'll give her 3 months and then to make a change and then withdraw care. During this 3 months, he visits her every day and reads her a script that he has been writing throughout the time that she's been sick. One day he visits and she is not in her room. He sees her mother crying and thinking the worst, but sees that she has woken up on her own. Tears of joy spread and her transition home is difficult. She requires a lot of help, but now that she is on the road to recovery. Fast forward 18 months and they're attending the premiere of the movie he wrote while she was hospitalized. I do want to say that I don't know how to make this happen, but I think it may be interesting in this movie if at the end something makes the viewer think that did this actually happen, or was this what Sam's future, what she wanted in her comatose state and she never came out of it?
Maybe.
Like an Inception. I don't know. I don't know if that would make the movie better, but that's kind of the thought I had. He's teary-eyed, you guys.
Before she goes in a coma, have them see a movie together. Mm-hmm. In sitting room theaters and show that Sam is enthralled with the movie, and when she's watching it, everyone around her disappears, and then that's just showing that, she's really into these movies. And then while he's reading her the script in the hospital, have her seeing the movie basically. Mm-hmm. You can see in her head like parts of the movie as she's imagining it, and so then at the very end you could show the same thing where she's almost alone in the theater and you don't know, is she just continuing to imagine it from him reading the script, or
is it actually a happy ending?
Yeah.
I felt like a movie, like, to keep on pace with the first one being like an artsy movie, it needs to be depressing, but I almost want the decision to be left up to the viewer.
Well, I hated that. It made me very sad, but it was way better than mine.
You say that every week.
Okay, but this time I mean that shit.
Did you like it?
Yes.
Like, is this the best one I've ever done?
Yes.
Ugh, I put a lot of thought in.
But also, this is like one of my favorite movies of all time now.
I know it is. It's so good. But anyway, almost like an Inception style ending. I don't know if that'd make the movie better, but...
So mine is called Garden State Part 2. I think it's better to call it Part 2 than just call it 2.
Dua?
Yeah, I think it makes for better kind of what's going on here. So I'm looking for it to be sort of like an adult coming of age story, but it is going to be a little controversial. So,
okay.
I mean, depends on who you are. Maybe if you're normal, I don't know. Andrew and Sam have been together, living in New Jersey for a few years, making the most of life when Sam finds out she is pregnant. The couple is worried as Andrew has been busy trying to write a coming of age movie about his childhood, but he has struggled with remembering parts of his childhood. Sam has been writing a book about her life, but hasn't been able to come up with an ending. Not to mention, their friends and family around them being excited about the pregnancy makes them more nervous as they don't want to let anyone down. While the couple has long lived on the premise that they are making the most of their lives, the idea of a baby has brought up some hard truths that they maybe have become very busy and don't have as much time for each other, and maybe haven't been all that happy in their current situation. Andrew and Sam begin exploring the idea of having a kid by visiting the baby aisle of stores, witnessing other children in public and how they behave, and talking with their own parents about their childhoods. This talk brings up some trauma of their past that they are afraid they will pass on. Meanwhile, they question if the world is a good place to bring a child into, as they seem to be bombarded with bad news on TV as the days go on. They reach a certain boiling point and begin fighting with each other, something that has in common in their relationship, leading the two to take some time apart in the movie. We see Sam spending time with her mother and brother, as well as her niece and nephew, which she envisions as her own children. Meanwhile, Andrew walks the town alone, fantasizing about his life with a child. Andrew calls Sam and the two apologize, but know they need to have a hard conversation and make a decision. We don't see the conversation, but we see the next morning Andrew and Sam driving to a Planned Parenthood center, and they witness protesters and are berated as they walk by, leading the couple to shed some tears, but they continue inside. A few weeks later, we see Andrew and Sam doing better, getting back to themselves, making a point to really live in the moment as they had claimed to do, and Andrew has finished his script, as the last few weeks put him in touch with some of his repressed childhood memories, and Sam has finished her book with a chapter about the pregnancy and how it impacted her, leading her to gaining a publishing deal. The couple will live on facing challenges even as adults.
I don't feel like that's controversial. I mean, yes, but...
It's going to be to people who question why they don't want kids.
Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of where the coming of age as an adult thing works. I mean, that's not really a genre of movie, but this is something that they might face as an adult. And I think it makes them look at their own relationship, look at their own childhoods.
I think and also it could be like maybe they want kids in the future, but just not now.
Yeah.
They're not ready.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well,
That's
thank
good.
you.
It's deep. I think we both had polar opposite sequels this week. I do feel like sometimes we have similar sequels. I feel like it happens more in like the superhero movies.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Oh boy. Wonder what next week will hold. Thank you so much for listening. We do so appreciate it. If you want to talk movies with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky. We are NansPod everywhere.
NansPod?
If you'd like to vote on whose sequel idea was the best, come by our YouTube channel for the polls, or let us know your idea across our socials, or you can reach us at needlesssequel@gmail.com. Links, as always, will be wherever you are listening. If I could ask you for one thing, it's to share our show with someone and leave us a review. That is how we get new listeners. Of course, I also ask that you come back for more Needless Sequels. Next week, we are watching Civil War on Max. And today I want to close with a line from Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you.
Hell yeah.
Take care of yourselves, everyone. We will see you next week.
Bye.